Welcome back. In this video, we're going to set up the Recyclerview so that it actually uses the adapter that we had set up. So you can see here, we have those 12 exercises here at the bottom, even though they will not be highlighted as the selected one, for example, as of yet, but we're going to implement that later on. For now, it's important to just display the Recyclerview. Okay, so that's what we're going to do in this video. So let's get back to our project, and inside of our exercise activity, we will need to create an adapter object of our exercise status adapter that we had set up. Okay, so let's do just that. Private var exercise adapter. Okay, and it will be a exercise status adapter object, which will be a nullable for now, and I'm going to assign null to it. So this is basically just the adapter that we created in the last video. It's our own class that we created, and now we can create objects from it, which we just did. Okay, now we can use this adapter to assign to our Recyclerview as an adapter. Okay, so where would be a good spot to do that? Well, I would say in the onCreate method. But as the onCreate method is something that we don't want to overload, let's create a new method which will take care just of displaying this Recyclerview at the bottom. So let's create a private function called setup exercise status Recyclerview. Okay, so this Recyclerview now will take care of all of the good stuff, which means, first of all, we will set the Recyclerview's layout manager. Okay, so here rv exercise status dot layout manager, and this is, by the way, our exercise status Recyclerview, which is this item directly inside of our user interface. Okay, and now we can assign a layout manager property to it. So the layout manager property allows you to make such changes as whether you want this to be a grid view where items are positioned like in a grid, or whether you want to position items next to each other, then the layout manager should be a horizontal linear layout manager. If you want to put them on top of each other, it would be a vertical linear layout manager, and so forth. So let's use a linear layout manager object here, which needs to have a context, and I'm going to pass this as the exercise activity should be the context of this layout manager. And then I can use the different settings. So you see we have horizontal, vertical, and invalid offset. So I want to use horizontal because I want my items to be positioned next to each other. And then you can say whether it should be displayed in a reverse order, and I'm going to say false. So I don't want to have a reverse layout here. Okay, so set that to false if you don't want it to be reverse. This is just a linear layout manager. For example, there are grid layout managers, for example, as well. So you could, for example, create a grid layout manager here and check what it requires. Okay, it requires the context and then the span count, the orientation, and the reverse layout. So I would use this third option here. So if you wanted to display it in a grid format, which I don't want to do, I want to use the linear layout manager, which allows me to put them next to each other. But just to give you an idea of what you can use as your layout managers. Okay, and now I need to assign a value to my exercise adapter because I want to assign it as the adapter for my RV exercise status. So you always need to do two things for that Recyclerview that you have as an XML widget. Okay, so you need to assign a layout manager, and you need to assign, well, the layout manager property, and you need to assign a value to the adapter property of that Recyclerview. And yeah, let's go ahead and prepare the adapter so that we can assign it. And this will be our exercise status adapter. And it needs a list of exercises. So I'm just going to pass our exercise list at this point. Now, if I force unwrap it, it's really important that this method setup exercise status Recyclerview will not be called in the onCreate method before we have assigned the exercise list. So I'm just going to call it at the very bottom here. Now, of course, the alternative would be to double check if the list isn't empty and only then create this object. But by following this structure where we get the list first and then we call this method, we're good to go. Okay, that's why we can force unwrap it. But this is something we have to be careful of, right? Just so you're aware, this could go wrong if you don't have the right order of your code. Okay, so now I just need to use my Recyclerview exercise status adapter. I just need to assign the exercise adapter to the exercise status Recyclerview's adapter. Okay, so let's just do that, exercise adapter. And that will be pretty much it. So now let's go ahead and test this. And let's see whether it will display the Recyclerview as we want it. So not as we want it, but it displays it. All right, so there we are. You see, get ready for jumping jacks, and it displays our Recyclerview here at the bottom. Now I want it to be centered, and how I can achieve that is by going over to my exercises, and also let me jump out of it because I don't want to have sound in the background, and make sure that the start and end of are the parents. Okay, so here layout constraint end of and start of. This will make sure that our item is centered. So our Recyclerview will now be centered. Let's rerun it and see if that's actually the case. So not yet. Okay, let me check what else could be the issue here. And I believe we could fix it by also just wrapping the content in terms of width. Okay, that should do the trick, because just adding start and end of will not be enough. And let's see, there we are. So now it's wrapping its content and it's being dragged to the sides, but it's also being pulled to the bottom, and it has, well, it is underneath our jumping jacks. So that's pretty much what I wanted to have in terms of the Recyclerview behavior. Okay, so let's summarize what's going on here. So we have this Recyclerview here at the bottom, which is basically just this Recyclerview XML widget. Okay, so at the very bottom of our activity exercise, we have this widget, okay, this Recyclerview. And the Recyclerview needs to know how items are positioned. So it needs to know about the linear or the layout manager. It doesn't have to be a linear layout manager, but that's what we are using because we want to put items next to each other. As you can see here, they are not on top of each other, but next to each other. And it needs an adapter. So we created this linear layout manager here in order to assign it, so this one, in order to assign it to our Recyclerview. And then we need to create an adapter in order to assign it to the adapter property of the Recyclerview. Okay, so this Recyclerview needs to have an adapter. And now, in order to assign an adapter, we of course need to prepare an adapter, which is what we did. So we created this adapter, which needs to have an array list, or a list in general. Doesn't have to be array list, it could be another type of list, but it needs to have a list of items that it's supposed to display. And in our case, it's going to be a list of exercise model items. So, which are just our exercises. Okay, every single exercise has an ID, a name, and so forth. And now we are just saying that our adapter should inherit from Recyclerview adapter. And here we're passing our own view holder. So we're saying use the view holder from the exercise status adapter for your type. So we're saying, okay, we create our own view holder class inside of our exercise status adapter class, and we pass in our binding object, which is the item exercise status binding. And then we can also use the binding in order to use the Recyclerview view holder, which is just a normal view holder, and we pass our binding root, which means we're passing our Recyclerview item itself. Okay, and then we can now access its item. So we can access the text view item, which is this item exercise status, which is this text view item. Okay, so this text view that we created an extra XML file for item exercise status. So this is how an individual item should look like. So now we have to implement those three methods. The get item count is the one where we just say how many items do we have inside of this items proper array list. So how many different elements are, or exercises are, inside of this list of exercises. Then we say what we want to do for every single binding of a view holder. So for every single one of those little circles. And what we're saying is just assign the ID of the number of the exercise to the circle. So to the text of the circle, to be more precise, because this TV item has a text property that we're now overriding. Okay, so we're setting the text of this TV item where we are, well, binding it in our view holder before, right? We're just assigning our ID to it of the model, which is our exercise model, which is basically our exercise. Okay, and now we're just assigning it here. And in the onCreate view holder, there we need to return our own view holder that we just created. At least that's our approach to it. And we are passing something of type binding to the view holder. What is the binding that we're passing? Where the binding object is our item exercise status binding, which we get through using view binding. And we inflate, and therefore we need to pass in a layout inflator. And we get that from the parent's context. So the parent is the view group. And then we need to pass in the view group itself, as well as say whether we want to attach that to the parent or not. Okay, and now at this point, we can assign this adapter that we just created to our Recyclerview. So we do that inside of our exercise activity. So set up exercise status Recyclerview is how I called the function, and let me call it correctly, the Recyclerview, like so. So I had a typo in there, and now this will basically do the trick of assigning everything, setting the layout that we wanted. In our case, that items are positioned horizontally, which you can see here clearly. Okay, so that's it for this video. In the next one, we're going to see how we can display at which exercise we currently are, because you see I'm at high knees running in place, which is, we could check that out, item number, where is it, triceps, it's number 9. So I would like to, well, make sure that 9 is going to have a different background. So see you in the next video.